Oh, Father.
Aloha! Welcome to this week's video and part 2 of my epoxy sword recreation. So in this video I'm going to be putting in the epoxy on the second side, finishing up the hilt, and putting the whole piece together. So I'm doing the same thing that I did on the first side. I'm just going to be drawing in an electrical design. My artistic skills in this regard are not the best. I just want it to look kind of jagged, like it's a bolt of electricity, and then I also kind of connected the sections. So on the other side, I don't know if you remember, but you'll see it here in a little bit, there were sections where it wrapped around, or it gave the illusion that it was wrapping around, and I wanted to match that on both sides. I'm just using a Dremel here with a larger tungsten bit. I used a variety of different bits on the first side to try to get familiar with it. I ended up sticking with really just that one bit for this whole side. It ended up working out perfect. So I'm using the same pattern or process flow. All I'm doing here is I'm taping the edges, and then that way it'll help keep the epoxy from dripping out and keep it kind of pooled in place. The swordfish bill that I'm using here isn't flat. It's a swordfish bill, and so it's kind of curved, and I needed a backing to help keep the epoxy from leaking out. So I got that into place. I let it sit overnight, and now I'm going to be coming back at it. Now I'm going to be working a little bit on the handle. I haven't sanded down yet the epoxy on the sword, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm kind of wanting to navigate over to the handle and the hilt and see how that's going to look. The design that I decided to go with is kind of like a integral katana / tanto knife handle. So kind of a mix of different styles altogether. I really like the katana build though, where the handle and the blade, it's a mechanical hold. There's no glue or epoxy or anything. It's just fully mechanical. So I wanted to keep that same idea with this piece. I am going to put a little bit of curve on the handle. The reason why I decided to do that is the blade itself is slightly curved, and I just thought it would look better to try to match that curve a little bit. It's not perfect, but that way the curve of the blade and the curve of the handle kind of have a good flow to it. Once I get it shaped down, I'll be sanding the whole piece down to probably 320. There isn't a whole lot of shaping to do on the handle. Really, what I'm doing is just trying to make sure it feels comfortable in the hand and that it aligns the way that I want to. One of the challenges with the bill is that it's not perfectly straight. It both curves up and almost like a warp to the side, and that's just due to it being a swordfish bill. It's not a perfect piece. It wasn't cut out and shaped. It's just the natural curvature of the bill. Now that I've got the handle mostly finished, I'm going to go back and sand down the epoxy and get the blade mostly finished and ready. I am going to be lashing the teeth. I kind of went back and forth a lot as to whether or not I wanted to lash the handle. I decided not to lash the handle, and I actually like it a lot better. So that worked out well. I did end up breaking one more tooth on the front end there while I was sanding. It just the tooth hooked into the disc sander, and the torque of the disc sander just ripped out the tooth. But it's not a big deal because I'll be fixing that. I needed to fix the other one anyway, so it works out in the end. Here I have my integral end there. It doesn't have a whole lot of distance between that break and the handle, and so I am gonna probably sand the corners a little bit. I decided to sand the corners on the blade just because it was sticking out past the hilt, and I didn't really like that, and so this brings it in and just gives it a cleaner look. One thing that I decided to do, I was thinking about it all last week, and I decided what I wanted to do with it, and I'm gonna be putting a veneer. This is abalone pearl, so I'm gonna put an abalone pearl veneer all around the top and edge of the hilt here. I wasn't sure how I was going to cut out the hilt because it has that center section, And so I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to do. What I decided to do is I'm just going to glue the entire thing to it and then punch out the center. So my hope is with the entire thing glued, when I go to punch out the center, it hopefully shouldn't gouge out the rest of it. I did take my time and I did try to be as careful as possible, and it actually worked out really well. I got it mostly gouged out, and then I used the sander here to kind of match the shape of the internal square. I guess it's a rectangle. And then once I got that into shape, I went and started working on the outer 4 edges, and I kind of followed the same process. I would just match it up to it, cut it out, glue it, and then once it was glued into place, I would then make sure that all the edges matched. And I'm just using an industrial super glue, not anything special. You can get it at Home Depot or any place like that. Here's the final section there where I have all sides veneered, and man, it looked really cool. I was really pleased with it. It added a nice feel to it. Very happy with the way that turned out. So here I have the hilt in place. I forgot to record it, but I put in the pegs into the handle and I just sanded them down. They're not glued into place. Everything is a really tight fit, very close tolerances, and so even though nothing is glued, it all holds really well. Now I'm going to go through and fix the 2 teeth up here at the end. And so what I have to do here is just cut them out. I'm using a Dremel with this tungsten carbide bit. So I'm going to be just drilling out the teeth, drilling out some leftover epoxy from that was there before. I'm going to mix some new epoxy and set those teeth into place. And then of course I will be lashing everything together once I'm done. The glue just really helps it stay in place so that as I lash it, it's a little bit easier. All of the teeth that you see here are bull shark teeth. They're all facing the same direction. It goes from, I think, 1 inch towards the base of the sword, and then the teeth get gradually smaller as it gets towards the end. But I think it's 1 inch to 3 1/4 inch is that gradual decrease in size. So here's the oiling. Man, I was excited for this. I wasn't sure how it was going to look. It was hard to tell just because the bill itself was a little bit lighter. But the contrast between the blue and dark on the bill just turned out awesome. Really cool. Really happy with it. Definitely turned out a lot more brilliant color-wise than I was expecting it to. I still don't know if I would have preferred using like a white or black. I think I would have preferred a black if I had a black epoxy. Didn't have one. But I really like the blue. And the veneer turned out really slick as well. The koa wood handle, it's not a heavy curl handle, but it's a dark koa, and I really love that dark koa. So even though it doesn't have a lot of curl to it, it has a little bit of figure, but it's really just a dark koa, and that has that shimmer that koa wood does. So here's the piece fully oiled. I'm going to let this sit for a day, and then I'm going to come back to it and finish up the lashing on the teeth. But look at that. That looks awesome. Just totally pleased with it. I wanted to, this is my favorite part of this whole piece is that I can take it apart. So you can see there the tolerances are pretty tight. That little peg I'm using to push it out almost gets stuck. That's just another piece of 1/4 inch peg. But these just pull right out. And then once these pull out, I can disassemble the whole thing. And there it is. Now, you know, on a traditional piece that was made of steel, this would be handy for, you know, maintenance on the blade and sharpening and stuff like that. Really for this, it's just the aesthetic. I really wanted to do this style of connection, but it worked out great. I couldn't be more pleased with it. Just a really tight fit and held really solidly. So I was very excited, very pleased. Now I need to get to lashing. One of my least favorite things, but it does make it look really nice. The lashing that I'm going to be doing on this piece is a little bit different than my standard lashing. I actually haven't done this lashing in a while. It's a cross pattern. You'll see that here in a little bit once I finish up. You can't really tell it from this angle, but on one side it leaves kind of like a triangle shape. On the other side though, it leaves an X, like an X shape all the way down. I can do X on both sides, but that would be a 2-ply lashing, and I didn't really want to put that in. So here is the final piece or finished piece. You can see the lashing there has the triangle shape on one side, and then on the other side it has that X shape, that X pattern. The wood, all the different colors really contrast really nicely. I was very happy with this piece. I am definitely going to be testing with this piece. I'm not going to test it on my ballistics gel. I don't want to break anything like I did last time. Instead, I'm going to be cutting some bottles of water, kind of like what you see knife makers do, just for fun. I did want to break it apart one more time just because this is so much fun. I don't even know why, but just the fact that the whole thing comes apart. I love it. There's a small piece of pearl veneer that was inside the handle. It popped out when I opened it. But the veneer on the handle looks great. The entire thing looks great. I absolutely loved it. Part of the reason why I put the veneer, though, is as I was cleaning up the connection point between those, I created a small gap, and I had already drilled the holes, and so I couldn't move my peg holes, and so the veneer also acts as a spacer. So it kind of has a two-purpose meaning there. But leave in the comments below if you think it would have looked better with a black or white epoxy rather than the blue. I really like the blue. It's hard to tell. I may or may not make one of these pieces again. There's a lot of work that went into this piece. It's kind of a unique feel to it. It's very, very custom. It's definitely a combination piece of, Japanese, Hawaiian, modern. Here's the same piece in the natural light, which it looks really clean in the natural light. Very happy with the contrast. You can kind of see the swirls in the epoxy. Makes that almost look a lot more like electricity. Man, swinging this thing around was a ton of fun. I had to be careful. I definitely don't want to break it. If I broke this piece, I don't know if I'd fix it again. This is I think the second time I'm fixing it. So I did a little bit different setup this time, just because in case I missed, I didn't want to hit anything solid. And so I knew if I missed and hit the bag, it would just cut into it. But man, it sliced that water bottle right in half. When I first hit it, I thought I missed, but I just sliced it. So I'm going to try 2 now. I'm not going to do any more than 2, just because I don't want to waste my water. But it sliced right through them. So it's pretty impressive. And it actually held really nice. All the teeth were solid. The blade, the hilt was solid. It was a ton of fun. I hope you enjoyed watching. This was one of my favorite pieces so far. It turned out really great. I just loved the different contrast. Let me know what you think. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton. I'm really enjoying this channel, and I want to keep it going, and your support has just been amazing. Mahalo plenty, and I will see you next time. Aloha.